10 spine-chilling true road trip tales exposed. Haunted encounters with the cursed unknown. The sun hung low in the Ohio sky as Sarah and Tom loaded up their car, bubbling with excitement for the long-awaited road trip. The kids, Danny and Mia, filled the back seat with laughter, their voices harmonizing with favorite playlists and silly car games. But little did they know, their journey would turn into a nightmare that would haunt them forever. When a sudden detour led them to a dilapidated amusement park notorious for its ghostly tales, adrenaline kicked in. Their spirits dipped as they stepped out, met by a gnawing feeling in the pit of their stomachs. An eerie wind whispered past, ruffling Sarah's hair like fingers brushing against her neck, unnerving and chilling. Dim lights flickered from rusting rides, shadows dancing on crumbling walls laden with graffiti that warned of the darkness lurking nearby. "Come on, it'll be fun," Tom urged, dismissing Sarah's unease. But as they ventured further in, even the kids fell silent. Mia clutched Danny's hand tightly, her wide eyes roaming the wreckage that once promised joy, now a mere graveyard of memories. Old missing person flyers fluttered in the breeze, faces trapped in an eternal plea, a haunting reminder of the people who disappeared into the night. The air grew dense, thick with an unsettling quiet, as the GPS cut out, leaving them with only the ominous silence. Anxiety trickled in like cold sweat as they drove deeper into rural backroads, Tom's confidence faltering. Neighbors peered from behind crumbled homes, their hollow eyes screaming warnings of the curse that plagued the town. "They're just being dramatic," Tom said, but Sarah felt the tension igniting panic with each fearful glance. Twilight descended, casting long shadows, the car now a vessel of rising dread. They pulled into a lonely gas station, its flickering sign barely illuminating the cracked pavement. While Tom vanished inside to ask for directions, Sarah watched as shadowy figures crept around the parking lot cloaked in darkness, whispering secrets that dripped like poison into her mind. When Tom returned, his excitement dimmed, a frown creasing his brow. The clerk, he was strange, said we'd find help if we shared our fears. Mistrust tangled the air as Sarah exchanged glances with the kids, who sensed the change. Despite the chilling feeling gnawing at her, they decided to press on, convinced that daylight would lead them to safety. The road twisted further into a nightmarish tunnel of trees, branches clawing at the car like skeletal hands. Whispered legends of predators lurked in the dark crevices of their minds. It felt like the very earth was conspiring against them. As they contemplated contacting local authorities, dread crashed over them like icy waves, stories of crooked cops echoing in their heads, guardians of buried secrets, not willing to share the truth. Panic surged as their headlights flickered on ghostly figures darting among the trees. Each family member wrestled with their own fears, the sinister force drawing close. They stood on the precipice, heart hammering, grappling with the heart-stopping question: would they confront the curse that had awakened, or would their road trip spiral into irreversible darkness? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The shadows grew thicker, the air heavier as an ear-splitting scream erupted from the woods, shattering the stillness. Fear clawed at their insides, each of them frozen, hearts racing as they realized the terror was not just a tale spun on the road, but a reality now pressing down upon them. What awaited them as night swallowed their hopes whole? The dark loomed, and any chance of escape slipped further from their grasp. A chill gripped the air as they sat in the car, frozen in place, hearts pounding like drums. The scream echoed through the trees, a haunting sound that seemed to claw at their very souls. Tom's hands trembled on the wheel, terror mirrored in Sarah's eyes. They exchanged frantic glances, each reading the other's fear. "Should we go back?" Danny whispered, his voice trembling. Mia pressed closer to him, her small fingers digging into his arm, eyes wide with fright. "No," Tom finally said, breaking the frantic silence. "We can't go back. We've come too far." The weight of his words sank in, heavy like a stone. They were trapped, cornered by a curse they didn't understand, and it was closing in. They flicked on the headlights, illuminating the twisted tree branches that loomed like sinister guardians. Something lurked beyond the thicket, waiting, watching. Suddenly, the kids gasped, pointing out the window. A figure stood at the edge of the woods, shrouded in shadows, barely visible. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, as if it were caught between reality and something far worse. Sarah's breath hitched in her throat. "Tom, what is that?" She barely managed to whisper. Before he could respond, the figure began to approach. It glided forward with an eerie grace, a bone-chilling grin plastered across a face twisted by darkness. Tom slammed the car doors locked, the sound echoing like a warning yell. "Drive!" Sarah screamed, her voice raw with panic, but the engine sputtered, the car coughing and wheezing as if it were reluctant to cooperate. They were stuck, encased in a cocoon of dread as the figure crept closer, the grin unnaturally wide. The kids huddled together, eyes wide with fear. "We can't wait here," Mia cried, scanning the trees for any sign of escape. Just then, the headlights flickered and dimmed. The figure halted, head tilting slowly, like a predator savoring its prey. It lifted an arm, the night air crackling with an ominous energy that sent chills down their spines. "Your fears," it hissed, voice layered with something unearthly. "They are what bring me life." A primal urge surged within Sarah. "We have to face it. We can't let it control us." She turned toward the kids. "We're strong together. Don't let it get inside your head." "Mom, I'm scared," Danny whimpered. "I know, honey. We all are," she said, forcing herself to keep her voice steady. "But we can't let fear win." The figure took another step, the moonlight glinting off something sharp at its side. Something that looked like teeth? Tom's eyes darted to the gas tank gauge, empty. They were running on fumes, literally and figuratively. Desperation clawed at him. Without fuel, they'd be completely defenseless. Suddenly, a commotion erupted behind them. The faint rumbling of an approaching vehicle grew louder, a light piercing through the suffocating darkness. They turned, hope igniting in their chests. Was it help? But as the headlights rounded the bend, revealing a dark pickup truck, it all felt too surreal. The driver was shrouded in shadows, his gaze fixed on the figure by their car. The figure straightened, its attention shifting toward the newcomer, mouth curling into a grin. "Get inside. Now," Tom shouted. Throwing the door open and nudging the kids out. As they scrambled to escape, the figure lunged, shrieking with rage at the sudden interruption. Just moments before it could grab them, the driver stomped on the gas pedal, the truck roaring into the clearing, headlights drilling into the darkness. "Why the hell were you here?" the driver yelled, eyes wide with urgency. "You need to leave now before it claims you." Their world tipped into chaos. The looming figure snarled, stretching its gnarled fingers after them. They had to fight it for the moment, but it wouldn't stop. Night had fallen completely, and now, the true horror was unraveling. "What do you mean, claims us?" Sarah asked, heart racing, torn between desperation and confusion. "You'll understand soon enough, if you last that long." The driver's voice was cold, filled with dread. The road stretched ahead, dark and unforgiving, winding into a labyrinth of unknowns. But one thing was unmistakably clear. Their nightmare had only just begun. What horrors awaited them as the night deepened, and the cursed shadows swirled around their path. The truck sped away, tires screeching against the gravel, yanking them from one nightmare into another. The wind howled through the open windows, an icy reminder of the terror lurking just behind them. Sarah clutched her children tightly, each bump in the road sending jolts of fear through her body. "Who are you?" Tom shouted at the driver, his voice strained and desperate. The figure in the passenger seat was bathed in shadows, expression hidden. "Just someone who knows what's out there," he replied, eyes darting to the rearview mirror. "I've seen it before. It preys on weakness." "What is chasing us?" Danny asked, his voice quivering. "Fear itself," the driver muttered under his breath, a grimace passing across his lips. "What do you mean?" "Just drive," Mia whispered, trying to keep her voice steady, though panic lurked in her eyes. As they tore down the twisting road, headlights barely cutting through the darkness, the figure they had momentarily evaded wasn't too far behind. It flickered in the distance, growing closer, as if mocking their escape. Tom turned to the driver, a wave of anger rising in him. You need to drive faster. It's right there. A sudden sharp turn threw them against the passenger side. Sarah gasped, pulling the kids closer as the truck careened dangerously close to the edge of a steep drop. We can't let it catch us. Just hold on. The driver yelled, his grip tightening on the wheel. As they crossed a bridge, the sound of rushing water below briefly drowned out everything else, creating an illusion of safety. But the presence at their back loomed large, thriving on their fear, a relentless predator lurking in the shadows. A low, guttural growl erupted behind them, growing louder until it felt like a living thing filling the air. Tom twisted around, heart hammering violently. The figure was closer now, its grotesque features becoming clearer beneath the moonlight. It moved with an unnatural flow, limbs contorting in ways that defied logic. Its teeth, sharp and glistening, shone like knives. What do we do? Mia cried, shaking with fear. Stay calm. We need to stay calm. Sarah pleaded, forcing herself to breathe. We need to think. Nothing matters but getting away from it. The driver snapped, frustration bubbling over. Just then, the truck screeched to a halt, tires spinning in the dirt. We can't keep going like this, he said, his eyes wild. What? Why are we stopping? Tom demanded, panic flooding his chest. It's going to get worse. We need to confront it, the driver claimed, gathering a small backpack from the floor. Are you insane? We just need to keep driving. The stranger turned, gaze piercing into Tom S. You think it will let you go? You don't understand. Before they could argue further, the figure materialized in the road ahead, cobalt eyes boring into them, filled with ravenous hunger. The driver's breath hitched, and he hurled the bag out the window, a few items spilling onto the dirt. What are you doing? Sarah shouted, wide-eyed. It needs fear to survive, and if it gets a whiff of your terror again, we're all finished. We have to give it something to feed on. Are you saying we have to sacrifice? The man shot back, voice tinged with desperation. Suddenly, the figure lunged, closer now. A scream ripped through the night as it reached for them. Get out of the truck, the driver shouted, throwing open his door. But fear gripped the kids, paralyzing them. Stay? Sarah screamed. Stay with me. The truck's engine roared, but as the figure pierced the shadows around them, it was clear they wouldn't be able to outrun it forever. In that moment, Tom's mind raced. We can't let it take us. But what if confronting it is the only way to break free? The air was thick with tension. Shadows hugged the edges of their sanity. With fear clawing at their throats, they faced a choice that would seal their fates. What would they choose when all hope seemed lost? And what awaited them if they dared to fight back? The air grew heavy as the reality of their situation bore down on them like an anvil. Tom stared into the dark, anticipatory gaze of the creature, each heartbeat thunderous in his ears. We have to get out, he shouted, adrenaline coursing through him. We can't just sit here. Danny whimpered, inching closer to Sarah. I don't want to go out there. I don't want it to take me. None of us do, Sarah whispered softly, eyes flickering to the driver. What do we do? Confronting it might be our only choice. The driver insisted, painfully aware that his time was running out. I can't let it feed on your fear. If it senses any weakness, his voice trailed off, leaving the implication hanging heavily between them. Mia's face blanched. So what? We have to stand here and face this thing? Just like that? Outside, the figure writhed and slithered, a grotesque silhouette against the night, its breath coming in ragged gasps. It was almost within reach, shadows coiling around it, as if hungry to embrace its prey. Listen, kids, Sarah said, forcing her voice to be steady. We stick together. Whatever happens, we're a team, okay? Okay, they echoed, though certainly not convinced. Fear coursed through them, a palpable entity threatening to boil over. Now, the driver yelled, bolting from his seat. With a jolt, the creature lunged forward. Whatever instinct twisted it toward them, it was driven by something deeper than hunger, something ancestral, primal. Get the bag, Tom shouted suddenly, the urgency burning in his chest. If we're going to confront it, we need something. It might not let us go, but maybe we can bargain. Without a second thought, he dove for the door, flinging it open and sprinting toward the dropped backpack. Heart racing, he could feel the creature's eyes boring into him, the air thickening as he skidded to a stop to pick it up. Pushing himself back up, he glanced over his shoulder, dread crashing down like a wave. The others were spilling out of the truck, breathless with panic but compelled by resolve. The driver had retrieved a few items from the bag. A flash of metal that glinted in the moonlight, a small vial, and an odd-looking stone wrapped in threads of leather. "Get ready." He barked at them, voice raw. "Keep your eyes on it. Don't let it lure you away." The creatures surged forward, a ghastly blend of feral grace and terrifying hunger, cutting the distance between them like a scythe through wheat. In an instinctive motion, Tom brandished the metal object, a knife, its blade reflecting the light like a savage promise. "What are you going to do with that?" Mia stammered, eyes wide with disbelief. "Fight or die trying." He spat, unwavering even as his legs trembled. The driver moved beside him, placing the vial in his palm. "This will hold it off, but only for a moment. Once it realizes our fear is gone, it'll chase the one thing it knows can give it strength." Tom's stomach churned. "And that is us," the man finished grimly. The creature let out a hair-raising shriek, a sound that reverberated in their bones and spiraled into a deep, haunting echo that filled the darkness around them. "What if Danny started," his voice cracking. "Let it go?" Sarah yelled, clenching her fists. A surge of resolve watered their fear, and in that suspended breath of time, they stepped forward to confront the beast. Their hearts thudded in unison, a shared rhythm of defiance as they pointed their weapons toward the monster inching forward. But then, a revelation struck as the creature paused, its eyes narrowing. It wasn't he just seeking fear, it was anticipating it, biding its time for their next move. "What are you afraid of?" it whispered, the sound slithering into their minds. In that chilling moment, doubt flooded Tom's heart. What would happen if they threw themselves into the shadows to stand against the terror? If they dared to invoke a darkness more profound than fear itself? The ground trembled beneath them as the beast lunged once more. Desperation flickered like a candle flame in the dead of night. Would they open that door, or remain sealed in their dread? Forever? A question hung in the air, thick as the shadows themselves. Would they fight back, or would they become the very fuel that the nightmare craved? And then, just as the beast neared its prey, the air suddenly shifted, a crack of thunder rumbling in the distance, a blip of light breaking the choking darkness. Something was about to change. But would it be their salvation, or something much worse? The moment the thunder rumbled, time seemed to fracture. Stricken with both fear and curiosity, Tom glanced at the storm gathering in the sky behind the creature. Lightning split the clouds, casting jagged shadows that eerily echoed the very thing stalking them. It was as if both night and storm were conspiring against them, wrapping the world in a blanket of dread. "Move!" The driver barked, breaking Tom's trance. He was already darting to the side, drawing the group back toward the truck. The others followed, adrenaline lending speed to their trembling limbs. They were sprinting, yet it felt as though the ground itself was trying to pull them back, tethering them to their worst nightmare. The creature, unfazed by the thunder, twisted with sinister grace, keeping pace, unfurling its dark form, fuller and more grotesque with each heartbeat. Its breath was a hot wind, sickening in its proximity. "You cannot run," it hissed, cold and mocking. "You are the prey, after all." The knife trembled in Tom's hand, and with it, his resolve. "Danny, get behind the driver," he shouted, pushing his younger brother away from the creature's grip. Sarah grabbed Mia's arm, pulling her close, her eyes flickering back toward the beast like moths to flame. "Tom, what should we do?" Sarah's voice was a tight string of panic, barely held together. "Hold that stuff the driver gave you," he shouted in reply, glancing back at the bulging eyes that glowed with malice. "We need to distract it. If I can get it to follow me, maybe you guys can find a way to use that vial." Suddenly, the creature surged forward, faster than before, lunging with a ferocious shriek that shattered the dark night. "You think you can escape your fear?" it roared, voice rippling like a dozen voices echoing from ancient times, each more terrifying than the last. "Now!" the driver yelled, tossing the vial to Tom. As it soared through the air, there was a sickening moment where it felt suspended, much like the very atmosphere around them. Tom caught it, but his grip faltered. Fear roared in his chest. He took a deep breath, still thinking of his brother. "Danny, stay back." But Danny had moved too close, drawn by instinct or perhaps the lingering fear that gripped him. The beast entranced him, its cold gaze sinking deeper. "Danny, No, Tom cried, but Danny didn't seem to hear. He was walking toward the shadows. Danny. The call snagged in desperation, the boy's movements slow as he walked further from safety, drawn by the darkness that throbbed like a living entity. No. A fleeting thought crossed Tom's mind, a heavy dread hanging over him. If the creature saw Danny as a source of fear, it would devour him, feeding on the very essence of terror. Without another moment's thought, Tom hurled the vial into the oncoming rush of shadow. It shattered on impact, an explosion of electric energy that burst outward, arching like lightning swirling through the darkness. For a split second, the light illuminated the beast, revealing grotesque, clawed limbs and eyes filled with both rage and intelligence. The creature reeled back, screaming so loudly that it seemed to shake the very air. The ground vibrated as if the earth itself were in pain. Now, the driver shouted, rallying them once more, but clarity was blurring. The electric blue haze enveloping everything as the creature thrashed and hissed. Something within Tom burst forth pure rage, a swell of defiance blossoming in his chest. We need to push forward. We can't let it take any more. In that moment, with heart pounding in unison with lightning strikes, Tom charged ahead. Mia and Sarah followed closely, but the ground beneath them felt alive, writhing like the creature itself. Is this how nightmares end? Or does it only feed them? The chase intensified. Visions of Danny swirled in Tom's mind, and he pushed through the haze of fear and doubt. They were nearing the truck, bare moments from becoming prey. But just when it seemed they might grasp at hope, the darkness thickened, pulling them back into shadowy depths. Would the light from the vial be enough? Or was this all part of the creature's grand design? The beast hovered behind, waiting, watching, a sinister breathing presence that was anything but finished. And then, through the hesitation, a voice slithered forth again. Remember your fears. What were they truly afraid of? Would they find out before their time ran out? The electric crackle lingering in the air was suffocating. Tom's breath came in sharp bursts, the weight of their race pressing against his chest as they barreled toward the truck. The beast was still close behind, a dark specter shifting in and out of the corners of his vision, lurking just behind them that sent icy fingers of terror crawling up his spine. Mia stumbled, her foot catching on the uneven gravel. Tom! She screamed, panic fracturing her voice. Time slowed as Tom turned, instinct overpowering the fear that gripped him. He lunged for her, grabbing her arm just as the ground below them shuddered. Get up! Keep moving! He shouted, pulling her forward, forcing her legs to keep pumping against the earth that seemed to conspire against them. He could feel the creature's breath on his neck, hot and putrid, filled with the stench of decay and despair. They reached the truck. It loomed above them, a metal fortress in a world turned to chaos. But the driver had already leaped inside, locking the doors with a finality that draped a heavy curtain of dread over them. Get in. Now! He yelled, his eyes wide and terrified. But Danny was still out there lost. Tom's heart twisted at the thought. He can't be out there alone. He turned back to where his brother had last stood, swallowed by the shadows, the glimmer of hope wavering like an uncertain flame. Forget him. It will come for all of us. The driver yelled, his panic contagious. For just a second, Tom wavered, the crushing weight of indecision squeezing the breath from his lungs. Did he leave Danny? Was his brother already gone? And then he remembered the sound of laughter, Danny's infectious joy flooding their last calm night together before the storm. Tom, we have to go? Sarah's voice pierced his reverie, fear trembling on the edge of despair. We can't let it get us. With one last glance into the obsidian depths, where no light dared to linger, Tom made a choice. I'll find him. No. Tom. Mia reached desperately for him, but he sidestepped her grasp, his resolve crystallizing into something fierce. As he dove back into the stormy night, shadows clawed at his legs, each step pulling him deeper into a trap of darkness. The howls of wind twisted around him, a cruel mocking chorus that drowned out reason. Danny! He shouted, voice shaking but holding firm. The sound reverberated through the night, swallowed by the shadows. Silence answered a silence that roared with menace. In that moment, he felt it again, the warmth of fear curling around his heart, trying to steal his courage. He fought against it, forcing himself forward. Danny! He called again, desperation clawing at his throat. Suddenly, there was a flicker of movement, almost too quick to see. Tom strained to focus, every shadow morphing into something more sinister. Tom. It was Danny's voice, but it was faint, like the fragile murmur from a distant memory. Come on, Tom urged, fear pulsing through him. Where are you? He scanned the darkness, dread sinking deeper as he felt the creature close in once more. And in the distance, just beyond reach, he glimpsed something, a figure emerging, barely distinguishable from the darkness. Tom's heart leapt. Danny, I'm coming. He pushed himself towards the figure, determined to rescue his brother from the abyss, but the shadows thickened around him, wrapping cold fingers around his ankles, pulling him back. Help! Danny cried again, but this time it was more urgent, a plea that twisted in Tom's gut. But the growling beast was closer now, its writhing form almost visible in the oppressive darkness, feeding off the stench of fear. The air crackled with energy, crackling like the skies above a storm not just of nature, but of that which stalked them. Danny! Tom thundered, reaching toward the shadow. But a gust of wind lashed out, forcing him to stumble. The creature shrieked, a sound raw and piercing, echoing through the trees and shaking the ground beneath him. In that flicker of chaos, the figure ahead flickered, wavering like a mirage. Was it Danny? Or just another illusion spun by the entity, lurking in the depths? In those dark moments, as dread consumed his thoughts, Tom had a choice to make. Believe in hope, or succumb to the terror. The choice hung heavy in the air. Would he let fear claim him, or would he break free from its grip? He reached forward, breathless, trembling with resolve, and just as his fingers brushed the surface of the shadows, everything went white. What had he touched? Was it hope or despair? And could either save them from the nightmare closing in? The searing brightness enveloping Tom felt like a burst of life against the encroaching darkness. It blinded him for an instant, but in the chaos, he refused to lose the grip on his sanity. The shadows around him stuttered, twisting into unnatural shapes, then slowly dissipating into a heavy fog that clung to his skin like a shroud. Danny! He shouted again, his voice breaking through the haze. He could no longer hear the creature's growl. The silence crashed over him, jagged and unsettling. He blinked against the light, struggling to regain his bearings, and as the world sharpened back into focus, his heart raced with dread. Where was his brother? The space around him expanded, revealing a clearing bathed in an eerie glow. Trees stood like grotesque statues, their twisted branches clawing at the sky. They seemed to shudder with unspeakable secrets. Tom's breath came in quick gasps as he scanned the desolation, frantically awaiting any sign of movement. Suddenly, a crackling sound broke the tension, like the snap of brittle bones. Shadows danced at the edges, warping and shifting unpredictably. Sweat trickled down Tom's back, and the familiar stench of decay began to seep back into the air. He swallowed hard. The creature hadn't given up. Tom, over here. Danny's voice sliced through the chilling stillness. It came from deeper within the shadows, a distant echo barely piercing the veil of fog. Hope flared and twisted into fear. Danny! He cried again, rushing towards the sound as he stumbled through the clearing, eyes darting, every rustle making the hair on his arms stand on end. What if it was a trick? What if his brother was no longer there? Help! Danny's pleas were now desperate, trembling with fear. Tom felt his heart drop. He pushed himself harder, legs burning as he fought against the biting cold that clawed at his side. As he reached a dense thicket, the darkness thickened, pressing down on him. No, not now, he muttered, breathless. He could feel the pressure build around him, something lurking just outside his vision, a pulsating dread that threatened to consume him whole. Tom! The voice was so unbearable, so close now, but panic flooded him. He pushed forward, tearing through the brambles that cut into his arms, the sharp pain grounding him in the nightmare as he fought for his brother. Danny! And just like that, he burst through the brush. But what lay before him stole his breath. A cave entrance loomed, shadowed and cold, and pouring from its mouth was a darkness so deep it could swallow the sun whole. Tom! The voice echoed again, but this time it was distorted, warping into a low growl, taunting him. In the distance, shadows emerged, whispering secrets, and from the depths of the cave, something wet and glinting crawled into view. It slithered forth, revealing rows of jagged teeth lined with thick, blackened droplets. Tom's heart raced. The beast had somehow cornered them. He felt a galaxy of terror swirl inside him. Did he rush in after Danny, risking both their lives? Or did he flee back to the truck, where safety lingered, albeit uncertain? Time slowed as Tom weighed his options, the growl of the creature vibrating against his bones. The laughter of his brother echoed through his thoughts, a fragile reminder of happier days. "Danny!" he cried desperately, stepping toward the darkness, adrenaline surging through his veins. But the creature lunged forward, the air thick with its rancid breath, leaving Tom with a decision he had to make, and only seconds to do it. But as Tom prepared to leap into the maw of the shadows, a sudden realization struck him. What if the beast didn't want him? What if it already had Danny, but preferred to play a game, drawing Tom deeper into the twisted nightmare? The cave seemed to breathe, its darkness alive around him. An unsettling sound echoed from inside, a voice indistinguishable from his own, weaving in and out of reality. What had he awakened? Tom hesitated. The line between fear and hope blurred. Suddenly, everything shifted around him, and the cave seemed to pulse, as if alive. In that frantic moment, a choice loomed before him, one that would either lead to salvation or damnation. "Danny!" he screamed once more, stepping forward into the unimaginable. But the answer lay deeper within the shadows, waiting to be uncovered, a truth that would forever change them, if they survived. Would they break free from this malevolent grasp, or would the darkness swallow them whole, along with every whisper of hope? Tom's foot hit the damp ground inside the cave, a cold chill coiling around him like a snake. The light from the entrance faded behind him, swallowed by the insatiable blackness. A tremor of fear danced down his spine. He could feel the weight of darkness pressing in, thick and suffocating. "Danny!" he shouted again, but his voice felt weak, unraveling in the silence as if the shadows were mocking him. The cave seemed to stretch endlessly, each step he took swallowed by the void. Then, more sounds emerged like strange whispers, each syllable pulling at his sanity. "Help me," a voice hummed, echoing in a way that sent a shudder through his bones. It wasn't Danny S., and yet it felt familiar, resonating from the recesses of his memory. Was this some sort of twisted game? The thought made his stomach churn. Clenching his jaw, he pressed on, adrenaline fueling his urgency. Every instinct screamed to turn back, to flee from whatever grotesque entity lurked beyond the jagged rock walls. But he refused to abandon Danny. That bond was stronger than his fear. It had to be as he moved deeper. The air turned heavy with an acrid scent, mingling decay with something citron and metallic. He blinked hard against the blackness, and for a fleeting moment, he swore he saw a figure ahead, a shadow darting among the stalactites, mirroring his own desperation. "Danny!" he yelled again, a plea echoing on the walls. But the figure simply melted away into the shadows, casting a deeper chill around him. Tom pressed on. The growl returned, throaty and menacing, reverberating off the stone walls. It was closer this time, and panic shot through him like ice water. Suddenly, a scraping sound, claws on rock, broke through the void, awakening primal instinct. His world narrowed to survival. Heart pounding, Tom clutched at his sides, ready to bolt. But another sound pierced the dark. Danny's voice, now strained and weak. Tom pleased, the words cut deeper than any blade. It was coming from a side tunnel, veiled in an inky blackness that felt alive, like it was breathing. What lay beyond could be salvation or horror incarnate. "Danny, I'm coming." Courage surged through him as he launched himself toward the cry. He stumbled through the craggy passage, hands skimming the wall for balance, breath coming in harsh gasps that felt constricted in this dread-laden air. With every step, he could feel the creature stalking him, a shadow within shadows. Its growl echoed and twisted, melding with Danny's voice until he couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. "Tom!" It was a scream now, one that sent icy fingers crawling up his spine. "Danny!" he screamed back, launching himself into the narrow opening that led to the sound. Cold dread pooled in his stomach as he broke through into a chamber, larger than the rest of the cave. It was slick and gleaming, sickly illuminated by a low, otherworldly light. In the center stood a figure, his brother, or what was left of him. Shackled to the ground, skin pale and stretched, he stared back, eyes wide with terror, morphing into dark pools. "Help me." Tom's blood ran cold. The creature loomed behind Danny, a grotesque mass of sinewy shapes and glistening eyes, a mouth open wide that revealed jagged teeth dripping with viscous slime. The thing had manipulated Danny's voice, twisting love into a trap, turning salvation into horror. They were playing with him. They wanted him to come closer, to take the bait. "Danny, fight it." "Stop. Please." Danny stammered, a sound twisted in pain. Tom's chest tightened as he felt the darkness spreading. The walls started closing in, the creature hovering closer. One wrong move, and whatever bond they shared might snap. Driven by sheer desperation, he stepped forward, poised to face the creature and unleash everything he'd kept bottled inside. But was this the moment? Would he find his brother, or a deeper, darker alternative? In the crescendo of terror, light flickered and extinguished, pulling him deeper into the abyss as the creature roared. Tom stood frozen, caught between hope and horror. What was the truth behind Danny's cries? What darkness had he beckoned forth? The ground trembled beneath him as the realization unfurled. There was no turning back now. He had walked into the heart of nightmare, and the creature, like a puppet master, laughed in the silence. Danny, and as the shadows gathered, a scream echoed through the cave. Was it Danny's or his own? What lies waited to be unearthed in the heart of that living nightmare? The creature surged forward, its breath rancid and hot, distorting the air around Tom like a looming storm. It lunged, and for a heartbeat, everything twisted into chaos. Tom barely had time to react. He ducked, his body moving on instinct as he scrambled backward, his heart racing. Panic swallowed him whole. "Danny!" he shouted again, his voice cracking under the weight of terror. This was no longer a brother-esque call. It had morphed into a desperate summons, a frayed lifeline thrown into the abyss. The chamber flickered with dim light, each pulse revealing the horrid visage of the creature, its eyes gleaming with a morbid hunger. "Help me." Danny's voice was strained, cracking like brittle glass. The words slithered through the gloom, yet they only filled Tom with dread. How could he help when the very essence of his brother was trapped in that thing? The shadows danced closer as the creature writhed, a maleficent grin splitting its grotesque face. A sickening growl reverberated within its chest, and Tom could almost feel the vibrations in his bones. He stumbled back, searching for some semblance of safety in the slick, unforgiving stone. The walls seemed to be closing in, the chamber tightening like a vice around his fear. "Danny, hold on. I'm coming," he yelled, though he felt the words echo hollowly against the oppressive silence. He couldn't allow himself to consider his own cowardice, especially with the dread of failure lurking just behind him. Danny's eyes flickered towards him, pleading and terrified. "Tom, it's a trap." The creature lunged forward, crashing against the ground with a booming thud. The noise reverberated through the stone, and terror washed over Tom like icy water. He turned and ran, the jagged rocks scraping against him, drawing blood each time he stumbled. The growling intensified, echoing through the tunnel he had just emerged from, a heartbeat behind him. He couldn't think, could only focus on escaping. The whispers grew clearer, twisting into guttural laughter just beyond his reach. Was the darkness calling to him, forging a bond with his soul? He stumbled into another chamber, smaller, but the light flickered weakly here too, barely illuminating the walls. But he couldn't just leave Danny. The thought of walking away from his brother paralyzed him with guilt. He needed a plan. He needed Danny. The call tore from his throat, laced with desperation. "Fight it. Please, fight it." The room pulsed with energy. Nausea curled his stomach as he saw what his brother was becoming. The chains binding Danny didn't just hold him captive. There was something sinister weaving around him, an inky darkness that crept over his skin like living tendrils. "Tom," Danny gasped, straining against his restraints. "You have to go? I'll take you too." "What are you talking about?" But before Danny could respond further, a horrendous roar erupted from behind him. The creature had caught up, the sound vibrating through the air as it licked its lips, anticipation glimmering in its monstrous gaze. Tom turned, breath hitching in his throat. The shadow surged forth, a torrent of malevolence ready to consume him. There was no time to waste. He lunged back, hands outstretched, and as he did, a flash of silver caught his eye, a dagger hidden among the rocks. Hope ignited anew, a thin thread against the ominous darkness. He dove for it, grasping the hilt tightly, heart racing as he turned to face the creature bearing down on him. "Danny," he shouted, gripping the dagger for strength. "I'll save you." The creature hesitated, eyes narrowing on the blade, sensing the shift in the air. And in that moment of stillness between predator and prey, Tom realized he had one chance to strike. But with each moment, what lay beyond the darkness awaited a horrifying truth still undiscovered. Would he be able to penetrate this nightmare and save his brother, or would he ultimately become another lost soul in the shadows? As he prepared to charge, a shift in the warmth of the air fluttered about him. A whisper rose from the depths, drawing him down. Would he choose to listen? And when that decision came, could he handle the truth that waited to be unearthed? The air crackled with tension as Tom gripped the dagger, steel cold against his palm. A whirlwind of emotions surged through him: love for his brother, fear of failure, and an unwavering determination to fight. He steadied himself against the distant howl of the creature, its monstrous form lurking just beyond the dim light, eager for prey. "Tom," Danny's voice cracked, echoing in desperation. "Please." The sight of Danny, bound and pale, ignited Tom's rage. The darkness that wrapped around Danny felt as though it could snuff out the last flickers of hope. As the creature surged forward again, a primal instinct kicked in. Tom took a step back and roared, "Get away from him." He launched himself forward, tearing through the suffocating shadows with a fierce energy he hadn't known he possessed. The creature hissed, sensing the shift in power. It recoiled, a twisted grin forming on its face as if mocking Tom's resolve. "You think you can save him? You're already too late," it taunted, voice smooth and dripping with malice. But Tom couldn't let despair creep in. With every ounce of his strength, he lunged, dagger raised high. The air rushed past him, electric with adrenaline, as he brought the blade down towards the creature. A flash of silver met a monstrous claw, igniting a cascade of sparks that lit the cave momentarily. The creature shrieked, a sound so inhuman that it pressed against Tom's thoughts like ice. "Your fear is nothing. You're nothing. You think you can stop me?" It roared, its shadowy form billowing with rage. "Danny," Tom shouted, eyes locked onto his brother's desperate gaze. "I want to leave you." With each frantic heartbeat, he felt the grip of darkness tightening around him. It howled and shrieked like a tempest, and as the echoes faded, he lunged again. The dagger found its mark, burying into the creature's side. It thrashed violently, a shockwave of energy rippling through the air as the room trembled beneath their feet. "Stay strong, Danny. Fight." Danny's eyes blazed with gratitude mingled with fear. "Tom, hurry." The creature lunged again, fury in its eyes, but Tom was ready. Summoning every bit of his strength, he yanked the dagger free and twisted it deep. This time, he felt warmth spread through him, not fear, but a fierce love that flared into hope. As he pressed forward, the blinding light swallowed both him and the creature, and suddenly, everything changed. Light spilled all around him, a flood washing away the lingering shadows. The air shimmered and reformed. Tom was thrown back against the cave's entrance, landing hard on the cool grass. The light dripped away into wise golden rays. The suffocating darkness had vanished. Panting, he pushed himself up and looked around. The cave stood behind him, now just an ordinary rock face, lifeless. Danny was there, free, sprawled beside him. Their eyes met, and a wave of relief rushed over Tom, washing doubts away like a summer storm. "Tom, we're okay?" Danny asked, confusion mingling with disbelief. "Yes, we made it," Tom exclaimed, pulling his brother into a tight embrace. Tears welled in his eyes, not from fear, but from the joy of survival. They were alive, and the nightmare was behind them. They stood to reclaim their distance from the shadows, the sunlight streaming warmly over them. The tension that held them captive melted away. The dread that had once gripped their hearts loosened its icy grasp, replaced by a tender warmth as laughter spilled from the kids, small birds bursting into song, the world returning to vibrant life. Tom, finally free from the specter that haunted him, realized it wasn't just the creature they had fought. They had confronted their fears. The road trip that had turned nightmarish now felt like a powerful and life-altering journey. What do we do now? Danny smiled up at his brother, the shadow of fear finally fading from his face. We keep moving forward, Tom said, giving Danny a firm nod. Together, as they walked back to the car, Mia and Sarah were already jumping with excitement, likening the whole experience to a wild roller coaster, kids. Laughing heartily, oblivious to the haunting they had narrowly escaped. Close friends, amid the endless shades of sunshine and shadows alike, they had triumphed together. And just like that, amidst the laughter and the light, the long road ahead felt limitless. They had beaten the nightmare lurking in the dark, and now, hand in hand, they were ready to embrace whatever came next. This was their moment to gather warmth and strength, to cherish the bonds that had carried them through. And with that, a new adventure awaited them just down the road. And finally, dear friends, as you've journeyed alongside Tom, Danny, Mia, and Sarah on this hair-raising road trip, remember, you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep our adventures alive. Don't wait even one more second to share this conclusion with at least 5 friends who need to see it. We can't do this without you. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this journey because your voice matters. Let us grow this amazing community together.